Coming up on Global Business, China and France will celebrate 60 years of diplomatic ties on Saturday. We take a closer look at the economic relationship between the two countries and the outlook for cooperation ahead. Bracing for a surge in holiday travel, China's annual Spring Festival travel rush has kicked off, with 9 billion trips anticipated across the country in the next 40 days. And from coffee to fruit, Europe's trade associations and businesses increasingly warn of the impact Red Sea disruptions are having on the region's imports and exports. And welcome everyone to Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong in Beijing. We begin with relations between China and France, where this Saturday marks 60 years since the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two sides. Chinese President Xi Jinping and French President Emmanuel Macron have delivered video messages to a reception dinner celebrating the occasion. President Xi called on the two sides to unwaveringly develop bilateral relations and respond to world uncertainties with the stability of China-France relations. President Xi also called on the two countries to expand cultural and people-to-people exchanges. President Macron said enhanced ties would not only meet the needs of the two peoples, but also benefit world peace and stability. He said France is willing to work together with China to address global challenges and promote the resolution of international crises. Well, over the past 6 decades, China and France have witnessed growing economic and trade cooperation, with bilateral trade volume and mutual direct investment increasing steadily. Take a look.
Currently, France is China's third largest trading partner in the EU, with total bilateral trade volume nearing $80 billion in 2023. China has also become France's largest trading partner in Asia. And the latest data from the French government shows bilateral trade in goods passed the 100 billion euro mark for the first time in 2022, a year-on-year increase of over 14%. In the first 8 months of last year, France's actual investment in China increased by nearly 106% on a yearly basis. As a result, France has emerged as the leading European country in terms of investment in China, boasting a staggering number of over 2,000 foreign invested companies. These companies collectively employ a workforce of over 300,000 individuals. A total of 140 French exhibitors took part in the 6th China International Import Expo, which was held last November in Shanghai. Focusing in on key areas, France has deepened cooperation with China in the aviation and space sectors, nuclear energy, agriculture, and food. Experts say there's potential for increased cooperation between the two countries in areas including education, green energy, arts, as well as people-to-people exchanges.
Meanwhile, China's trade with the wider European Union, the country's second-largest trading partner, remained stable last year. According to China Customs, China-EU trade topped some 5.5 trillion yuan last year, or nearly $768 billion. Now, that represents a 1.9% decline compared to 2022, mainly dragged by a 5.3% decline in Chinese exports to the bloc. In the meantime, EU's exports to China rose 4.6% on an annual basis. And returning to China-France economic ties, earlier we sat down with Airbus's Executive Vice President Philippe Mun to get his views on China's business environment and investment outlook. Take a listen.
As the world's second-largest civil aviation market, China's fleet of commercial aircraft is expanding rapidly. This expansion translates into a surge in the need for comprehensive and efficient aircraft management throughout their entire life cycle. Aviation powerhouse Airbus has officially inaugurated its Aircraft Lifecycle Service Center in the bustling city of Chengdu, Sichuan Province in China. This center will not only cater to routine checks and overhauls, but also focus on recycling high-value components, a testament to Airbus's commitment to sustainability and eco-efficiency. We sat down with Philippe Mun, Executive Vice President of Airbus, who shared insights on how this pioneering center will revolutionize aircraft lifecycle management and further elevate the synergy between Airbus and China's dynamic aviation landscape. So congratulations that the new Life Cycle Service Center will commence operation soon. Tell us how you see the significance of this project.
We see the life cycle management of aircraft to contribute to this sustainability ambition that we have. In Airbus, we perform research and development, we develop aircraft, we manufacture aircraft, we support them. And then when it comes to the end of life of the product, we were thinking that it was providing value to the market, be able to dismantle the aircraft in a sustainable way, in a green way, because of course we want air transport to be as clean as possible.
Well, there is a growing emphasis on supply chain resilience, especially amid global uncertainties and geopolitical tensions. How do you see the supply chain resilience in China?
China decided to go for high quality in terms of the aeronautical supply chain. I think that we, Airbus, have a strategy with a local for local supply to our Airbus product to support mainly our Tianjin final assembly line. And this is something which is important to us. When I'm looking to the rest of the world, and the people not believing that traffic would be back and that airline would need some more aircraft. So I think now everybody understood that traffic is back. That's why we're sharing our global market forecast for all the supply chain to be aligned with our own objectives. And I think that's another way. The last topic was probably the access to talent pool. So to be able to hire people, to train them. We still feel the passion of young generation for to belong to the air transport and aviation family.
China is committed to further opening up its market, and this year also marks the 60th anniversary of China-France diplomatic ties. How do you perceive the opportunities to further enhance business and economic cooperation?
When it comes to aviation, I think that you understood that our strategy is really to have more vertical integration in China, so to be able to manufacture locally what we would need to finally assemble our aircraft. And that's the same for services, where we think that there is a very robust aviation footprint in China and here in Chengdu, for example. And this is what we want to leverage to further develop our services activity in line with the projection I was sharing with you earlier.
Our conversation there with Airbus Executive Vice President Philippe Mun. Well, for more on China-France economic relations, I want to bring in Zhou Mi, a senior research fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. Dr. Zhou, thanks for joining us. So give us the big picture first. How robust are commercial and investment ties between China and France relative to China's other major economic partnerships?
Yes, we know that both China and France will have very similar, the habits of having something really diversified. We stick to the openness to the world market, so we have a lot of, understanding about how can the world trade can evolve. So in the past several decades, we see that there are some fluctuations between China and other trading partners, but the trade between China and France kept very stable. So the news has mentioned that we have so many similarities and cooperation, not only on the trading goods, but also in the trading services. So we know that the French wines and cheese, and they are also admire our cooking of different things. So I believe that there are so many things that we can try to find more diversity and stable cooperation between our two countries.
Dr. Zhou, so in a video speech to celebrate 60 years of diplomatic ties, Chinese President Xi Jinping said the two sides need to actively tap the potential of cooperation in emerging areas such as green industries and clean energy. So what's the potential there?
Yes, we know that the world is under pressure for the involvement for a better world, where we are fighting against the climate change, and also we have to step to the digital economies. While China has a very huge market, which has gave a lot of potentials for French companies to trying to find some innovation and trying to find the market here. So we know that for a lot of innovation, we have to prepare for a longer term of return about the investment. While China is very good at that. And still we have so many people. I mean, for the human resources, there are much more possibilities for both countries to do that as a collectively efforts to trying to find some better solutions to the challenges.
Right. Well, there are currently around 2,100 French companies that have invested here in China. So as China focuses on a new era of modernization and high quality development, which industries and areas in the China market do you see in terms of new opportunities for French businesses?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that agriculture is one of the priorities because Chinese peoples are able to consume better things. And I think that they are trying to do good not only on the final products, also about the processing. And the second is definitely the technology cooperation. We know that including Airbus and also other aspects that China is able to provide the better market and also the supply chain to support them. And the third one would be the kind of some new things like for the artificial intelligence, some of the new areas and the fields that we can both cooperate to find more abilities and also trying to design the rules for the international cooperation in the world.
All right, so agriculture, AI, clean energy, technology in general, all areas for future cooperation between China and France. Dr. Zhou, always a pleasure having you on the program. Dr. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. Thank you. It's still to come here on Global Business. Bracing for a surge in holiday travel. China's annual Spring Festival travel rush has kicked off with 9 billion trips anticipated across the country in the next 40 days.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Well, China's annual Spring Festival travel rush has kicked off with 9 billion trips anticipated across the country in the next 40 days. That's twice the number from the same period last year. The 40-day holiday travel period is from January 26th to March 5th, when Chinese people will be traveling home to celebrate the Chinese New Year, which begins on February 10th. It's estimated that 80% or 7.2 billion of the trips are non-commercial road trips. Since Thursday, over 74 million railway tickets have already been sold. Now, this marks a 144% year-on-year increase. Air traffic is also expected to log a historic volume of passengers this year, with 2 million air trips expected per day. The traffic authorities have made preparations to ensure safe and smooth transportation during the travel rush. So as the Chinese New Year approaches, millions of people are expected to travel home for family reunions, putting China's transportation system to the test. Local governments and transportation companies are making preparations to accommodate this surge in travel during the peak season. Take a look.
In Fujian province, the local expressway administration has opened 23 new entrances recently, which will cut detour time for drivers.
By adding 23 new entrances, we aim to save time and fuel for residents taking nearby expressway. Residents living in some towns used to drive a couple miles before reaching toll stations. These new entrances will give them fast access to the expressway, saving them time and fuel.
Transportation Authority in Anji of Zhejiang Province has put safe journey home as top priority in its Spring Festival rush agenda. Officials urge passenger transportation firms to fully check their vehicles before hitting the road and remind drivers of safety education. A bustling Spring Festival travel season is welcomed by the aviation sector as it still seeks a full recovery from the pandemic. To bring more passengers on board, the Shanghai-based China Eastern Airlines has set up a check-in counter in the Hongqiao railway station to ensure a smooth, hassle-free transfer to the city's 2 airports.
Passengers can hand their luggage to us at the train station and get their boarding passes in advance. If time allows, they can go downtown to see their friends or visit scenic sites. They can even take the subway to the Pudong International Airport for outbound flights, leaving the luggage to us. It's really convenient.
In Dalian, passengers can opt for a way home on the sea. The city's ferry firms have boosted their capacity for their busiest time of the year. The city's port administration has also introduced ticket-free pass for the first time. Passengers will no longer need a paper ticket, but show their identity card to get on board. Xu Yi, CGTN, Beijing.
So from the expressways of Fujian province to the ferries in the port city of Dalian, all modes of transportation are gearing up for the Spring Festival travel boom. Rail is, of course, also a major mode of transportation here in China, as the country is home to the most extensive high-speed rail network in the world. Our Omar Khan is at the Guangzhou East Railway Station for more on what we can expect from the travel rush in one of South China's busiest cities.
Plenty of people traveling throughout South China and beyond. Now, Guangzhou East Railway Station, they predict around 3.5 million passengers to traverse through this very station throughout the travel rush period. In the 15 days prior to the Chinese New Year, so the first 2 weeks, 15 days about, you're going to have 1.7 million people traveling with a daily average of 114,000. Now, all of those numbers, you crunch them together, that is a 153% year-on-year increase. Now, overall, railway authorities in Guangdong are predicting a 33% increase in terms of passenger flows compared to last year. So again, a lot of people still taking to the rails to move around this Chinese New Year. Now, just a few numbers on the overall transport situation here. I'll go through them right now. You have 10 million travelers expected to take air transport as a form of getting home, I should say, and 127 million trips. That's including all forms of transportation, will take place here in Guangdong province. That's a 25% increase. So the willingness to travel, people wanting to go home, be to travel both domestically, internationally, we can all feel that. Now, as for road vehicles, authorities are predicting that highway traffic will go down. They believe waterways, airports, and rail transit will be the top three forms of how people move around.
Well, China has made substantial progress in further optimizing the business environment for foreign investors. Briefing the media earlier today, China's Commerce Minister Wang Wentao highlighted several measures implemented by the ministry, such as extending tax exemptions for foreign individuals and providing tax refunds for foreign research institutions purchasing Chinese-made equipment. The ministry has been diligently working on implementing 59 foreign investment-friendly policies recommended by the State Council last August and will continue to push for their successful implementation. Now, regarding the Belt and Road Initiative, the Commerce Ministry expressed its intention to promote expanded trade and investment with participating countries with a focus on benefiting local communities. Furthermore, the ministry acknowledged the challenging external environment anticipated this year. It mentioned that it is currently studying and evaluating policies to ensure stability when it comes to foreign trade. Take a listen.
我们今年外贸发展面临的外部形势
The external environment is complex and severe in 2024. We will introduce new policies as soon as possible to address consumer demands, foster new economic drivers to improve competitiveness of industries and create vitality, and promote the development of new markets and unleash new potential for imports.
And China's top securities regulator has vowed to strengthen investor protection, especially more vulnerable investors. At its 2024 work meeting, the China Securities Regulatory Commission stressed the notion of investor-orientedness while pledging to crack down on rule breakers and facilitate compensation for investors. The agency will also work to improve corporate governance and strengthen the regulatory system. Well, China's State Council Information Office has provided more details on the implementation of a pilot program to reform Shanghai's Pudong New Area, which is home to the Shanghai Free Trade Zone. The new 5-year plan announced earlier this week is designed to support the high-level reform and opening up of China's economy.
We will enhance efforts to improve science and innovation system, protect intellectual property rights, attract talent, and change the government's function to improve the business environment. We hope we can explore a successful experience in Shanghai, which could be replicated in the rest of the country.
We will explore ways to develop a comprehensive reform pilot. For example, we will study how to manage cross-data flow and make standards for this. We will reduce negative lists for market access to improve the business environment. We will invite companies to take part in standard building. We will also further improve the financial system to support the real economy.
Right, in other headlines we're tracking at this hour, Japan's core inflation has dropped below the central bank's 2% target, reaching its lowest level in nearly 2 years. Government data reveals that the Tokyo Consumer Price Index increased by 1.6% in January compared to the previous year, falling short of the median market forecast of a 1.9% gain. The Thai government reports that exports have seen continuous growth for 5 months in a row, although the rate of growth has fallen short of analyst expectations. However, there is optimism that export growth this year will experience a slight rise after a slight dip in the previous year. And European authorities estimate that disruptions in the Red Sea are starting to have an impact on shipping logistics, which is hindering efforts to ease food inflation. It's estimated that agricultural goods with the value of around 70 billion euros would be affected by Red Sea issues. And turning to the world's largest economy, where U.S. GDP grew at an annualized pace of 3.3% in the final quarter of last year, beating market expectations. Our Caroline Malone is in Washington, D.C. with more.
Well, the U.S. economy grew 3.3% in the last quarter of 2023, defying expectations somewhat and continuing this moderate growth that the US economy has been enjoying. A large part of that has to do with consumer spending that has continued to be strong throughout of last year, particularly over the holiday season, where we saw people out spending on dining out, on cars, on healthcare, and on a resilient labour market that continues to defy expectations as well. You know, a year ago, analysts were predicting that we could be in a downturn, even a recession at this point, but we're not seeing that at the moment. But the Federal Reserve will be looking at some key data points when they next meet to decide how to treat the economy. The top line inflation rate is 1.7%. They've been aiming for about 2% for the last 2 years. They have been increasing interest rates. But it's likely that in 2024, for the remainder of this year, they will start to cut them, maybe as many as 3 cuts of 25 basis points each. Analysts saying we could be around the 4.6% interest rate mark by the end of 2024. Manufacturing data also continues to be important, with some production moderately decreasing, as is the labour market and consumer spending. But overall, the growth and inflation pretty much in line with what the Federal Reserve would be hoping for. Caroline Malone for CGTN in Washington.
So overall inflation has eased in the United States, but that doesn't mean prices are going down or that Americans are any happier about the costs they're forced to bear for basics like housing and for food. Now a new study is putting firm figures on grocery costs across the nation and puts Miami on top of a list of America's most expensive cities to buy food. CGTN's Nitza Soledad Perez has more.
Inflation here in Florida is higher than the other states.
Inflation is a common topic of concern across the U.S. and most certainly here in Florida. Though price hikes have cooled considerably from the peak seen in 2022, inflation in South Florida still runs as hot as the weather, currently 5.7% compared to the national rate of 3.4%.
So we have a family of 6. So it's my husband and I, and then we've got 3 kids who are 18 to 23, and then our 2-year-old as well. So trying to cook big enough meals that everybody gets fed and has stuff for school, for lunches, and so that's been probably the biggest challenge is everybody eats a lot of things, and making sure we have enough for everybody and everybody's preferences as much as we can.
A new study by the consumer advocacy group Help Advisor ranked Florida high among states spending the most on groceries, but found no city in the country spends as much as Miami, with households there shelling out on average a whopping $327.89 per week. Katia Silva literally shops around to save a little money.
It's amazing how increased the prices all over the supermarkets, but a good idea is to come here to one supermarket, then the other supermarket because it has sales or BOGOs or that, and that's the way you save money.
Houston, Texas, and Riverside, California are not far behind Miami, with households there spending around $300 per week on groceries.
Once prices are put up in the store, there's a reluctance to take them down. So we often say that that prices take the elevator up and the staircase down. So having been able to, for the first time in many years, take advantage of the COVID-induced inflation due to supply chain difficulties, grocery stores were able to jack up their prices and now are doing their best to keep them at high levels.
Nationwide, the study found U.S. households are spending an average of $1,000 a month on groceries. Among ethnic groups, Latino families are spending the most, almost $1,300 a month.
The report also suggested a correlation between education and spending, with less educated consumers spending more at the store. And analysts say Miami's popularity is helping drive the inflation wagon.
In Miami, you've had a net migration inbound into the city with no appreciable increase in the amount of square footage devoted to grocery retail. And as a result, you have more demand being channeled into the same level of supply, the same number of stores. And that also sustains the high prices that we see at retail.
And unless the region sees an influx of retailers to change that supply equation, prices here in the so-called Magic City will likely remain above the national average. Nitza Soledad Perez, CGTN, Miami.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.